There's a quiet shift happening in the global power structure. It's not being driven by war or by dominance. It's being driven by relevance. And right now, one truth is becoming clearer than ever. The United States can't afford to lose India. Not because India is dependent on America, but because America is becoming increasingly dependent on India economically, strategically, technologically. And this isn't about alliance or emotion. It's about necessity. In the last few years, we've seen the global system break in ways we didn't expect. Factories stopped, ships stopped, prices went crazy. And suddenly the world realized something important. It was far too dependent on one country for almost everything. And that country wasn't India. For a long time, most of the world's products, electronics, phones, cars, even medicine were made in China. It was fast, cheap, and massive. But when the pandemic hit, global trade was disrupted. Ports were blocked, supply chains broke. Countries had to wait weeks, even months, just to get basic parts. That's when big companies, especially in the US, started looking for alternatives. And that's where India quietly stepped in. India has the scale, over 1.4 billion people. It has the skill, millions of engineers, designers, and coders. And most importantly, it has the stability, democratic rule, strong institutions, and growing infrastructure. So the US and its companies began shifting their supply chains from China to India. It wasn't emotional, it was logical. Big tech brands like Apple, Google, and Tesla started moving production to India. In fact, Apple now assembles iPhones in India. Experts say 1 out of every 4 iPhones will be made in India by 2025. That's huge. India is now the second largest mobile phone manufacturer in the world, just behind China. And it's not just phones. It's semiconductors, solar panels, electric vehicles, pharmaceuticals, and even aerospace components. But here's what makes India different. It's not just a cheaper option, it's a trusted partner. Unlike other manufacturing hubs, India doesn't come with geopolitical tension. It doesn't spy on partners. It doesn't weaponize trade. It simply delivers with transparency, laws, and ethics that match the expectations of the modern world. This is why the US can't afford to lose India. Because if you remove India from the global supply chain today, you don't just lose a factory, you lose an entire ecosystem of resilience. India offers a backup plan for the world, not just for companies, but for entire economies. And here's the real story. India didn't beg for this role. It earned it by building trust, by training talent, and by staying open when others closed. In the next decade, almost every American product you use, from phones to cars to medicines, may have a part made in India. Not because of charity, but because India makes sense. This isn't just about factories. This is about India becoming irreplaceable. And in today's fragile world, no smart power can afford to lose something irreplaceable. Not even the United States. The next world war won't be fought with tanks or missiles. It'll be fought with semiconductors and artificial intelligence. Whoever controls the chips controls the future. Semiconductors, tiny chips that power everything from smartphones to satellites, are the backbone of the digital world. Without them, there's no AI, no 5G, no electric vehicles, no military tech, no quantum computing. And right now, the world doesn't have enough of them. That's a big problem, especially for the United States. Today, most semiconductors are made in just a few countries: Taiwan, South Korea, Japan. Taiwan alone makes over 60% of the world's advanced chips. But Taiwan is sitting in a high-tension zone. If something happens there politically or militarily, the global tech economy could shut down overnight. That's why the US is now looking for a safer, stable, and scalable alternative. And again, all eyes are on India. India may not be leading in chip manufacturing yet, but here's what makes India powerful in this race: talent, trust, and timing. Over 20% of the world's semiconductor design engineers are of Indian origin. Some of the most advanced chips in iPhones, Tesla's, and Nvidia servers are designed in Bengaluru and Hyderabad. Big names like Micron, AMD. And Applied Materials are already building billion-dollar semiconductor facilities in India. These aren't symbolic moves. These are strategic shifts because India is one of the few countries where you can find trained engineers ready to scale, a government willing to invest in chip subsidies, and a neutral, safe environment to protect intellectual property. The US-India ICT initiative on critical and emerging technology is already pushing joint development in areas like AI, quantum, defense tech, and semiconductors. It's not about one helping the other. It's about co-developing the future. Let us talk AI now. AI needs chips. AI needs cloud. And AI needs trained minds. India has all three. It has one of the largest pools of AI talent in the world, second only to the US. It's building sovereign AI models using Indian languages. And it's launching AI labs in healthcare, agriculture, and climate tech at scale and at speed. For the US, this matters because the next phase of AI is not just about computing. It's about global cooperation. You need partners you can trust, partners who respect data, privacy, ethics, and again, India fits. Because unlike authoritarian systems, India builds tech within a democratic framework. That's rare and that's valuable. So here is the point. The semiconductor and AI race isn't just about machines. It's about partnerships, long-term, reliable, ethical partnerships. And when it comes to that, the US can't afford to leave India out. Because in a world run by code and chips, India is becoming the power behind the power. The future runs on batteries, not barrels. And batteries run on minerals. That means whoever controls critical minerals controls the clean energy future. The world is moving away from oil, coal, and gas. It's shifting towards solar, wind, green hydrogen, and electric vehicles, EVs. But to build this clean future, you need materials like lithium, cobalt, nickel, copper, and rare earth elements. Here's the problem. These minerals are not everywhere. And even where they are, they're often controlled by very few countries. For example, China controls more than 60% of the world's rare earth processing. The Congo supplies over 70% of the world's cobalt. And South America's lithium triangle holds over half the global lithium reserves. Now, here's where India steps in. India doesn't have the largest reserves, but it's building powerful supply chain relationships, especially with the US. Let me explain. India has recently signed deals with countries like Australia, Namibia, Chile, and Argentina to secure long-term access to lithium, copper, and other rare minerals. This is important for the US because America wants to reduce its dependence on China for critical materials. So India becomes a bridge, a trusted partner that sources minerals from reliable democracies and delivers them through secure, transparent supply chains. But it doesn't stop there. India is also building processing and refining capacity, something even rich countries struggle with. It's investing in battery recycling, EV production, and mineral tech. In fact, India is on track to become a global green energy hub. Let's talk about green hydrogen, the clean fuel of the future. Hydrogen can power factories, ships, and even aircraft with zero emissions, and India is betting big on it. India plans to produce 5 million metric tons of green hydrogen by 2030. Major Indian companies like Reliance, Adani, and NTPC are investing billions into hydrogen tech. The US is already partnering with India on hydrogen infrastructure, R&D, and exports. Why does this matter? Because the US wants to lead the global clean energy transition. But it can't do it alone. It needs allies who are scaling fast, staying stable, and sharing tech. And India checks all three boxes. It's also about cost. India builds renewable infrastructure cheaper than most countries. Solar power in India is among the lowest cost in the world. That makes it a key player in making green energy affordable for all, including American firms looking to invest abroad. So here's the takeaway. India isn't just helping the US go green. It's helping the world get clean, affordable, and secure energy at scale. And in a world that's moving from fossil fuels to electric futures, India is the new oil well. That's why the US and the world simply can't afford to lose it. Geography doesn't change, but the way you use it changes everything. And India's geography might be its most underrated power. If you look at a world map, India sits in the center of the most important region of the 21st century, the Indo-Pacific. This region stretches from the eastern coast of Africa to the western shores of the US, including the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and Australia. Nearly 65% of global trade flows through these waters. More than half the world lives here. And almost every global power from the US to China is trying to shape what happens here. India sits right at the heart of it. It controls major sea lanes, island chains, and choke points like the Strait of Malacca and the Indian Ocean routes. In simple terms, if anything moves through the Indo-Pacific, it either passes through India's influence or near it. That's powerful. Now, the US has global reach, no doubt. But in this region, it needs local partners. Partners who are stable, trusted, and capable of keeping the seas open, the trade routes safe, and the regional balance in check. And India is one of the only countries that can do that without being part of a formal alliance. That's what makes India different. Not a military base, not an outpost. It's a civilizational power with its own weight, and that carries more influence than aircraft carriers ever could. Let's look at the numbers. India has the fourth most powerful navy in the world. It's developing blue water capability, meaning it can project power far beyond its own shores. It has active naval partnerships with Japan, Australia, France, and the US, but still follows its own doctrine, not anyone else's. India also has strong diplomatic ties across the region, with ASEAN countries like Vietnam and Indonesia, with Africa's eastern seaboard, and with Gulf states like UAE and Saudi Arabia. This gives India something rare: horizontal trust. It can talk to everyone without taking sides. In today's polarized world, that kind of trust is gold. Now the US knows this. That's why it doesn't try to control India. It respects India, because India doesn't need to shout to be heard. It just needs to stand where it already is, at the center of global trade, security, and diplomacy. So here's the strategic truth. The US may have more aircraft carriers, but India has something else: presence and patience. And in the Indo-Pacific, presence and patience win long-term influence. That's why losing India isn't just about losing a friend. It's about losing the center of gravity in the most important region on Earth. Most countries are getting older. Their economies are slowing. Their workforces are shrinking. But there's one nation getting younger and smarter at the same time. That nation is India. By 2025, India will have the largest working age population in the world, over 900 million people under the age of 35. That's not just a statistic, that's momentum. And in a world driven by innovation, scale, and speed, this kind of population is a strategic advantage. Let's put this into context. The United States, like Europe, is aging fast. By 2030, 1 in 5 Americans will be over 65. That means fewer workers, more healthcare costs, and slower growth. At the same time, new technologies like AI, robotics, biotech, and quantum computing are expanding rapidly. So here's the challenge: who's going to build, manage, and lead these systems? That's where India comes in. India produces over 1 million engineers every year. It has the second largest number of STEM graduates in the world, right behind China. And most importantly, it's producing talent that thinks globally but builds locally. Look at the US tech industry today. From Google to Microsoft, from Adobe to IBM, Indian origin CEOs are leading billion-dollar companies. This isn't luck. This is a pattern, and the US knows it. That's why American universities actively recruit Indian students. That's why US companies set up R&D labs in Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Pune, and Noida. They're not outsourcing. They're co-developing the future with Indian minds. But it's not just elite talent. India is also training millions of youth in AI, data science, and digital finance through government-backed programs like Skill India and Digital India. It's creating a pipeline of next-generation creators, analysts, and engineers who are ready to plug directly into the global economy. And here's something important. Indian talent doesn't just build. It adapts. It scales. It leads. This is why, for the US, losing access to Indian talent, whether in Silicon Valley or in India itself, would be a major setback. Because innovation isn't just about funding, it's about people and trust and vision. And India has all three in abundance. Let's also not forget the diaspora. Over 4.4 million Indian Americans live in the US, one of the most educated and successful immigrant groups. They are scientists, doctors, entrepreneurs, and policymakers shaping the US from the inside out. So the next time someone says talent is the new oil, just remember, India is sitting on the richest reserve. And that's why the US and the world can't afford to ignore it. Sometimes the most powerful revolutions don't look like revolutions. They start silently, in code, not chaos, in transactions, not treaties. And right now, one of the biggest tech revolutions in the world is happening in India. Let's talk about UPI, the Unified Payments Interface. In simple words, it's a digital system that lets anyone in India send or receive money instantly, securely, and for free using just a smartphone, no credit card, no bank visit, just a tap. You might think, okay, sounds useful. But here's what makes it historic. In May 2024, India processed over 11.4 billion UPI transactions in a single month. That's more than the entire population of the planet, every 3 days. No country, not even the US or China, has built a public payment system that is this fast. India's rise is not an accident of history. It is a deliberate convergence of vision, scale, and timing. What began as a quiet shift has now become a defining transformation of the global order. The world is not merely witnessing India grow. It is beginning to orbit around it. And this shift is happening not because India asked for attention, but because the world can no longer afford to look away. Whether it's in manufacturing, semiconductors, artificial intelligence, green energy, or strategic geography, India is embedding itself into the systems that will shape the 21st century. This isn't just a story of economic growth, it's a story of credibility. India is being trusted not because it is the cheapest, but because it is the most consistent, democratic, and values-driven choice available in a world shaken by unpredictability. The United States, once the unquestioned center of global influence, now finds itself needing partners more than followers. And in India, it has found not just a partner, but a peer, one that brings population strength, intellectual power, and strategic clarity to the table. India's technological ecosystem is no longer in the shadows. It is designing the chips that will power global AI, training the talent that will lead the next wave of innovation, and laying down the rails for a digital economy that's faster, fairer, and far more scalable than most of the West can currently offer. Through initiatives like UPI, Digital India, and Skill India, it is not just catching up, it is leapfrogging. But India's strength doesn't come from brute force or empire. It comes from resilience, from the patience of a civilization that has endured and evolved for thousands of years. India has achieved what few nations have. It has become indispensable without being invasive, influential without being imperial, powerful without being provocative. In a world polarized between extremes, India's balanced diplomacy and non-aligned principles are not signs of indecision. They are strategic assets. It can talk to Russia and the US, engage with China while cooperating with Japan, trade with Iran while defending interests with Israel. This horizontal trust is rare in today's geopolitics and makes India a central pillar in any global strategy. At sea, India does not need dozens of military bases to show its presence. Its influence flows naturally through the Indian Ocean, where it controls critical trade choke points and maintains partnerships that uphold freedom of navigation and regional security. In cyberspace, India is not only building AI models tailored for its people, it is exporting scalable frameworks to other emerging economies, helping the world transition into the digital age with more equity. In energy, it is pivoting the planet toward renewables, not just with talk, but with action, building the infrastructure for solar, hydrogen, and EV supply chains at a pace the world didn't expect. Demographically, India is not just young, it is hungry. Hungry to innovate, to lead, to redefine success not in Western terms, but on its own cultural and civilizational foundations. Its diaspora strengthens every economy it touches, from Silicon Valley to Singapore, from Dubai to London. These are not just immigrants, they are ambassadors of a rising India that remains deeply connected to its roots. As we move into a future shaped by code, chips, trust, and talent, the nations that will lead are not those with the most weapons or the loudest voices, but those with the deepest roots and the broadest reach. India, with its mix of heritage and innovation, restraint and resilience, has emerged as that nation. And in this new world order, one thing has become clear. No global plan, no strategic vision, no technological frontier can succeed by ignoring India. Because India is no longer a rising power. India is the power rising. And the world, including the United States, is beginning to align not out of generosity, but because it has no smarter alternative. This is not India's moment. This is India's momentum, and it's only just begun.